Is Nintendo Switch 2 worth it? In this video, I'm going to be talking about that. I'm going to tell you about what's different over the original Switch and why you may want to buy this over another console. Or do you want to buy it over another console? That depends on what you want from your console. So the Switch 2 launched yesterday on the 5th of June and is already selling like crackers. The Switch 1 was the most popular console, I think, of all time, so the Switch 2 is off to a very good start. It's a lot more expensive than the Switch 1, so £400 or thereabouts, $430 if you want Mario Kart World with it, which represents good value because the game on its own looks to be £75. Yow! So, one thing to bear in mind, console games are quite expensive, and particularly on the Switch. But it's not all bad. Let me tell you about this console, and you're probably going to want one anyway. So let's have a little look at what it does. So what is new on the Switch 2 versus the Switch 1? First thing is the size of the unit itself. It's quite a bit bigger than the Switch 1, and it also boasts 1080p resolution, so it's going to play games at that little bit higher res and look a bit more crisper to you as you're playing. It can even boast frame rates up to 120 FPS, and if you plug it into your TV and your TV supports 4K, you can play a number of games in 4K on it. That's impressive from a tiny little unit like this. So in terms of capabilities versus the big consoles out there like the Xbox Series X and the PS5, no, it's not as capable in terms of processing power as either of those units. But bear in mind, those units are massive. My Xbox Series X is a huge beast. It is like this, you know, it's like a monstrous brick. This thing, look at it. It is slick. It is portable. So if portability is key to you, or you want to sit on the sofa and play it while you're watching TV, or you know someone else is watching the TV, this is a good contender for you. So you've also got new Joy-Con 2 controllers. They're the little controllers that go on the side, and they've got some nice little tweaks to them as well. They just clip in via a magnet now, which is pretty cool, but you can also use one as a mouse, which I'm going to show you in a minute, so that's pretty cool as well. Games are Slim Jim on the ground at the minute, so the game releases that we've got at the minute is literally Mario Kart World. That is it for the moment, but more games, of course, are coming. So if we go down to some other bits on here, there's Mario Kart World looking cool. And there is some interesting enhancements to the way you can interact with other Switch users or Switch 2 users with a new mode, which is GameChat. Now, one of the things that I found really annoying with the Nintendo Switch was how you couldn't use one of these. So a headset that's wireless, you were really restricted. You could kind of get around it a little bit with a wired headset, but that's so pants. So in the end, you know, like my little boy, when he plays on the Switch, he tends to just ring his friend on a phone. Now, what you've got with the new version is there's a built-in microphone on the unit itself, so just here, which we'll have a little look at in a moment, and you can also link up a camera to it, which is quite interesting. So then you can do game chat where you can actually see your friends. As long as they have the same setup, they can choose to display their face with the camera if they want, also the chat, but bear in mind that's going to pick that up from the unit itself. I don't think there's mics on the actual Joy-Con controllers, but it is still quite a nice idea. The other thing you can do with it as well is share the game that you're playing, and other people can watch you play as well. So you can go on share my screen. You've got a little chat button on the unit itself, this little little button down here. You hit that and then you can talk to other people. That's a nice example of how the units now clip on and off with the magnet, whereas before you had to slide and lock them on, which was a bit fiddly. You can see that the dock is a lot chunkier because it's obviously got to lock in this big unit now, but you can see in the hands it's still a comfortable size. Now, this is one of the really cool standout features, is each of the units can be kind of controlled like a mouse, a simple mouse, but it adds more functionality. So that's going to make it a little bit easier to play games that lean themselves better to mouse control, which is something you can't really do, certainly with the built-in controllers on the Xbox or the PlayStation, although you do have some with, I believe, mouse compatibility is possible on certain consoles. But it works out really well. So Let's go through and see some more things. It's determined to show me the new dock and how that works. There's a built-in stand now on the Switch 2 that just makes it a little more comfortable to play. You can adjust the tilt on it like that, so that's quite cool if you just want to, you know, pop it on a tabletop or something and play it. You've got that ability there, so that's quite nice that you can adjust the viewing angle. So that's a nice example that we see there where we've got it there, and then the Joy-Con 2 there. So the Joy-Con 2 that we were talking about, you've got the connect in with the snap, so we've got this magnet look here. This is what I was talking about with the mouse. You can see it here. So this is going to increase options with games. So we're going to hopefully see some more interactive ideas on the Switch 2 from developers as they get used to these new options that we've got available. I still think one of the coolest things Nintendo ever did was the Wii, and we've never really seen that replicated with the Switch. So there's some attempts with it, but never as interactive, in my opinion, as what we saw with the Wii. But that's pretty cool that the Joy-Con 2 has that. So the C button, that's a little close-up. That's the little additional button that you see on the Joy-Con 2 over the original Joy-Con. And then you can chat with your other people like we saw here. This Nintendo Switch 2 camera does not come with the Switch 2. It's an optional accessory, so you don't need to buy it. You don't need to link it up. If you want to use the GameChat, you can do that. You also need to make sure that you're using the Nintendo Online, so Nintendo Switch Online to do it. But until March 31st, 2026, GameChat can be enjoyed for free. So you can try it out, check if you're happy, and then you're going to need to go for a subscription after that point. I think that is possibly going to be an additional fee at some point. I don't know. I think Nintendo are going to play around with it and debate whether they want to charge extra for it. So we've got the 3 different play modes, and this is where the Switch shines over a console like the Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5. If you want to go out and about with your console, this works really, really well. So you can play on a tabletop, you can play a handheld, or you can plug and play it into the TV. That's entirely up to you. Processing, like I said before, it is a big jump over the Switch 2 because over the Switch, because the Switch 2 can do 4K. You've got 120 FPS. There are custom graphic capabilities on there, and it's difficult to compare it to other consoles. But from what I've read from reading about, on various online sites, it seems to be comparable to a PS4 Pro, which is insane because it is so compact. So that's very, very good, but it's not going to beat a PS5 or an Xbox Series X. You do have much nicer audio quality on it, though. It talks about that you can have 3D spatial sound if your headphones support that, so it's more immersive than with the Switch 1, so that's pretty cool. The internal capacity has also been increased. You can now put in 256 gigs of internal storage, which is 8 times the storage capacity of the Nintendo Switch. So that's pretty cool as well. Now, a thing that you may be worried about, and rightly so, is whether that's a nice size comparison we see there. So you can see a big difference with the size compared to the other one. Still looks comfortable, so the hands there still look like it's fairly easy to play. You can see that the buttons are still similar gaps here, and they've basically added a bit of extra down the bottom here as opposed to all over the unit. So it's still just as comfortable to play with than the Switch was. But I forgot where I was going with this now. Oh yeah, games. So the question with games is whether you will see any issues with game compatibility, and Nintendo, as usual, have been working hard on this. So this is the status of compatibility tests for the Nintendo Switch games. So you can see the blue is all good news. That means everything is good. So it says no issues found during basic compatibility, but there are a tiny amount of ones where we've got some issues with it that they're working on or may never do. So you can see there's certain games that won't be supported on Nintendo Switch 2 or aren't currently supported. And there are games that have compatibility issues. So you can see prevents progress on Nintendo Switch 2. You can see a list of games where issues have been resolved. Another thing to bear in mind is if you're using a game that uses the original Joy-Con controller that's attached to the Ring-Con, Joy-Con 2 won't work with that, so you need to be aware of that. So if you use any of those, if you are an existing Nintendo Switch user. But lots of information here. Nintendo very open as to what works and what doesn't with the console, so that all works pretty well. So I'm just going to go back to the original thing there. I think we've covered most of the things on there, so we went through all of this stuff here. So we come to the point about, is it worth it? So one of the things that I'd like to say is we need to talk about cost. Like I say, a £400 or £430 with Mario Kart World is quite a chunk of money. You know, we're into territory of PS5 money or Xbox Series X money. You know, it's not a cheap console, but this does things that are different to those consoles, and that's the thing you've really got to think about is, are you interested in more mobile gaming, so in terms of being able to use your console out and about or away from a TV? If so, the Switch 2 is a really good solution for that. It's going to be more powerful than working on your mobile device in many cases. It's got a much bigger screen, so it is cool for that. I like the chat capabilities that we've got. I like we can plug it into a TV just like the Switch. This is interesting with a GameChat, that if you talk to other Switch 2 users and you have lots of friends or even a few friends where you want to online game together or just share what you're doing. And by the way, you can be playing different games and just say, I'm playing this, I'm playing that. There's a lovely video that talks about this and it shows that. I think it's that one there, but I'm not going to bore you with it now. But it is quite cool that you can do that sort of sharing, which isn't a new thing. You can do that on other consoles. But what's nice with Nintendo is they think about a sort of solution that works for everybody. It's like the Nintendo way, but what I think would make it better is some way of sorting out your mic and speaker on a headset, please, Nintendo. Now maybe that has improved with a new version, I don't know. Details are still sketchy on that, but overall, would I buy it? Would I upgrade? Now this is this is the question. Because I have the Xbox Series X, I also have a PS5. They are my preferred choices for anything that's not a Nintendo game. So if you want to play Mario Kart, of course you need to play it on a Nintendo. That's just how it is. So you're buying the Switch for exclusivity. Now I don't tend to play games away from a main TV screen, so the idea of this little mini screen is something that doesn't really appeal to me. I don't like playing games on a small device. That's just me though. You may love playing games on a small device, and if you do, this is a great solution for you. I think that link with Nintendo, so you have all the cutesy graphics, really appeals to younger gamers as well. So Mario is a fantastic character for young gamers. There's loads of cutesy type Nintendo games out there. It was a massive seller. If you are already a avid Switch user, I think it's a no-brainer to upgrade to the new version. As long as you're happy with the price difference, you could sell your original Switch and most of your games should work with the Switch 2 over time. Of course, the value of the Switch 1 is now going to plummet because the Switch 2 is out, but hey, you know, this is a console that's probably going to serve you well for many years to come. So is it worth it? If you're a Switch 1 user, absolutely. If you're looking for it as your first console, depends what you want. If you want to do the mobile gaming or move around, yeah, it's a good solution. But if you want the absolute best graphics out there and you want better compatibility with things like wireless headsets, then I think you're better off with a PS5 or an Xbox Series X. And those two, I think, are a very close call between them. The PS5, I think, is more popular in Europe, but personally, I really like my Xbox Series X, and I tend to play that more than the PS5, mainly because I think the Game Pass, games that you get is a little better than what you get on the PS5, but both are excellent consoles. Let me know if you're going to get a Switch 2. That would be really good to know. Was this useful to you? If it was, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more stuff like this, and love to know your thoughts. Did you get hold of a Switch 2? Have you had any problems with pre-order? Are you going to get one? Let me know.